Welcome to Ex Libris. I have my sidekick Steinbeck with me. And today we are going to be talking about all of the books that I read in January because it is now April, so that makes sense. Let's not focus on the fact that I am late to the party and be glad that I showed up at all. I don't like parties. I think I still wanted to go back to what I read in January because on the one hand, I think it just makes it well-rounded that I start from the very beginning of the year. And on the other hand, I read some real crackers. I had some feedback that my first video was maybe a little too long. So let's get started. No preamble, no talking. So I started off the year with Fool's Errand by Robin Hobb. For me, Robin Hobb is reliable. She's consistent. She's comforting. Whenever I'm in a state where I don't know what to read or I'm in a bit of a reading slump, Robin Hobb is one of those authors that I always turn to because I know that I'm going to have a comforting good time. If you're not familiar with Robin Hobb, she is probably one of the most well-respected, beloved fantasy writers alive today. So her magnum opus is known collectively as The Realm of the Eldlings. It's made up of about 16 books grouped into trilogies and one quadrilogy. So the first trilogy is the Farseer trilogy, and that is where we are first introduced to Fitz and the Fool. The second trilogy is Live Ship Traders, and I freaking loved the Live Ship Traders. There are pirates, there are sentient ships, there's dragons, there's sea serpents. Did I mention there's pirates? So that was awesome. Coming back to what is now the first book in the, the Tawny Man trilogy. Quite a long time has elapsed since we last saw Fitz and the Fool. Fitz is kind of living on the down low in a hut with his wolf companion and a young orphan boy who is taken under his wing. And so there's a lot of catching up to do. So for the next 200 pages, Fitz doesn't leave his house. He's visited by a succession of people from his past, which basically serves as a way to reintroduce characters and to remind people of what happened all that long time ago in the Farseer trilogy. But, it was kind of like, guys, just tell your story walking, Like, let's get questing. I understand that a lot of exposition had to happen so that we could be reminded of where we were and what was happening, but I kind of just wanted the story to start getting on with it. As much as I have enjoyed previous books in the series, this one left me feeling a little cold. Will I continue reading Robin Hobb? Yeah, of course I will. But this one, yeah, not my favourite. The next book I read was And the Stones Cry Out by Clara Dupont Monod and translated from the French by Ben Faccini. And this book was gorgeous. Gorgeous. It's set in the French Cevennes Mountains, and it involves a family to whom a child is born, a boy who has severe mental and physical disabilities. He is blind, he can't hold his own weight, he can't use his arms and legs, and he can't speak. The whole book is about how this boy's siblings relate to him and how his arrival into the family affects each one of the siblings. The first part of the book is about the elder brother who, when the child is born, is only about 10, I think, 10 or 11. And he takes it upon himself to care for his brother. He finds meaning and purpose in looking after this boy, and the way this is described is so beautiful. The brother crumples leaves in the boy's hand so that he can feel the leaves, and smooth stones, and he lays down next to the boy and whispers in his ear what he can see and what's around them, so that the boy has a sense of place, and just so that he knows that he's not alone and somebody is there. And I just found these descriptions of a child so young taking on this responsibility of caring for someone who can't care for themselves is just stunning. It's just really, really well done and really beautiful and really tenderly and compassionately told without being overly sentimental. You then hear from the sister. The sister's reaction to the boy is very different. She resents this child, not only because his disabilities make her uncomfortable, but also because she feels that the boy has stolen her older brother from her, because he now spends so much time with the boy that he doesn't have any time or attention to give to his sister. What is very interesting about this book is that it is narrated by the stones in the environment. The stones that are local to this area. So these stones are in the garden, they're in the environment, they're also embedded in the walls of the old farmhouse that this family lives in. And so the stones form a kind of Greek chorus telling the story of this family. It also gives the story a real sense of place because it is rooted in the environment, being narrated by the actual stones. This book is gorgeous. 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 My next read was Moon Tiger by Penelope Lively. I mentioned in my last video that I am embarking on what I am calling the Booker Prize Project. I'm trying to read or finish reading every Booker Prize winning book. I only have about 9 left to go, and Moon Tiger is part of that project. It won the Booker Prize in 1986, I believe, 87. If you're at all interested, and I'm sure you're not, the books that I have left on the Booker Prize to read, In a Free State by V.S. Naipaul, Holiday by Stanley Middleton, Rites of Passage by William Golding, The Bone People by Kerry Hulme, The Old Devils by Kingsley Amis, Last Orders by Graham Swift, The Line of Beauty by Alan Hollinghurst, The Finkler Question by Howard Jacobson, and The Luminaries by Eleanor Catton. That's what I've got left to read. I suppose a lot of them I haven't read yet because I'm not hugely pumped about them. I think I'm the least excited about The Old Devils by Kingsley Amis, which is about a bunch of old men getting drunk in a pub in Wales, and Last Orders by Graham Swift, which is a bunch of old men getting drunk in a pub in Ireland. Old men getting drunk is a bit of an ick for me. Yeah, don't like it in life, don't like it in fiction, but I shall prevail. I shall get there. I was delighted to find that Moon Tiger, absolutely adored it, loved it. It is about an elderly woman named Claudia. She is lying in hospital with terminal illness, and she decides that she's going to write a history of the world, but it is, of course, much more a history of her own life. So she's recounting her friends, her family, her lovers. She is something of a prickly character and somewhat unlikable, but she has an indomitable will and is fiercely independent. So despite all of her flaws and her complexities, we do end up liking her, even despite the fact that her relationship, she has a very strange relationship with her daughter and a questionable relationship with her brother. I'm not going to get into that. A lot of the book takes place over the course of World War II. A lot of it is set in Egypt in the 1940s, which I thought was a great different perspective of that era. Of course, it does kind of show the imperialist views of British people in pretty much every part of the world. I know it doesn't sound like much, just a woman recounting her life. There are a lot of books on that theme, but Penelope Lively has such a wonderful use of language, and also the stylistic choices that she uses in this book make it really something special. This was a 5-star read for me. I really loved it. The next book I read, Hot House by Brian Aldiss, a classic work of science fiction dating back to 1962. This is set in a sun-blasted future Earth. Do you mind? The Earth has stopped spinning, the sun is about to go nova, and the sun is now in a fixed position in the sky. The moon too is relegated just to a fragment of its size and is much closer to Earth and is also fixed in position. Insects in this world have grown to enormous size and humans have grown very small and slightly greenish in colour. They live high in the trees because the undergrowth is, the forest floor means certain death. We're told at one point that humans are the only mammals left alive, but we do catch glimpses of other little furry creatures, including the highly organized and very intelligent termites who keep small creatures in their termite mounds that say meow. Make of that what you will. There are also mile-wide spiders that have built their webs all the way up to the moon, and they travel back and forth from the moon. And keep in mind, this is 1962, so it would be another 7 years before NASA launches the Apollo missions to the moon. It's also another 47 years before Avatar, which is also about a planet of immensely dangerous forest. So this is very, it can be quite prescient. There's a sentient parasitic fungus. There's human-like beings with wings. There are carnivorous plants, and everything wants to kill you. It's a lot of fun. There's even a group of delightfully stupid humanoids called the Tummy Belly Men, who are attached to a tree via an umbilical cord that goes directly into their stomach, and the tree feeds them, or maybe they're feeding the tree. Anyway, the Tummy Belly Men are quite funny, and they offer comic relief for the story, because science fiction doesn't always have to be serious. So much imagination in this book. Brian Aldiss's descriptions of all of the different plant life and the interesting ways that they can kill you is very cool. So Hot House by Brian Aldiss is delightfully weird and wonderfully strange. The next book I read was Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle. So, if you are not familiar with Chuck Tingle, let me introduce you. So he first made a name for himself writing online erotica with names such as Pounded in the Butt by My Own Butt, Space Raptor Butt Invasion, Bigfoot Pirates Haunt My Balls, Not Pounded by Anything, 6 platonic tales of non-sexual encounters. See, there's something for everyone. And then, to everyone's surprise, Chuck Tingle started writing horror books, legitimate, conventionally published horror novels. And what's even more surprising is that they're very, very good. Interrupting poodle. Bury Your Gaze is set in Hollywood, and it surrounds a screenwriter who has just been nominated for an Academy Award for a short film that he made, but is best known for his horror movies. And it seems as though he is being stalked by the creatures and characters from his own horror novels. This book is a lot of fun. It is an effective horror story. I really enjoy the fact that he has a lot of LGBTQIA plus representation. He makes an effort to have a very diverse group of characters. He's also someone who obviously has an excellent sense of humor, but with his horror novels, he doesn't go in for kind of cheap laughs. There are very funny things that happen, but he just allows it to kind of sit there and be funny. My favorite part in Bury Your Gaze is when a sleazy cartoonist is killed by a falling piano. I mean, that's just that's just objectively very funny. My next book was Mother Naked by Glenn James Brown. Medieval monologue is my favorite genre. This is set in the city of Durham in 1434. Mother Naked is the name of a gleeman or entertainer who has come to the city to entertain all of the richest, most powerful merchants and men of influence in the city. And as he tells his tale of wraiths and wild men, we start to get the impression that Mother Naked might also have a lesson to impart. I absolutely loved this book. So the book is written as though it is Mother Naked's monologue. He is delivering his story, his speech directly to a crowd, and even though he is at times interacting with these people and has hecklers and conversations with people in the crowd, we don't hear that side of the story. All that we are hearing is what Mother Naked is saying. So this gives it a very theatrical feeling. It kind of almost reads like a play or a speech, a monologue. What I also really liked was that a lot of the words are spelled with a kind of ye olde English medieval spelling, and that makes it very immersive, very authentic as well. Mother Naked is such a fantastic character. The story that he weaves is fascinating. Such a compelling character. This is historical fiction done right. Oh, what's that you say? We're about halfway through. Well, you know what that means. It's time for a sugar-free V. It says on the side that you shouldn't exceed more than 2 a day, but I've been drinking 4 of these every day since the year 2000, and I'm fine. Like and subscribe! The next 2 books I did not read consecutively, but I did read close enough together that they are indelibly linked in my mind, and they both belong to the same specific genre. Literary Western horror is my favorite genre. So the first book is Walk the Darkness Down by John Bowden, and the second, Red Rabbit by Alex Grecian. The first book, and here's a bonus recommendation for you, Walk the Darkness Down, I found out about through this book, 101 Books You Must Read Before You're Murdered by Sadie Hartman. This is such an excellent resource for any horror lover. Whether you are a seasoned horror reader or you are just new to the genre, this is where you should start. So this book categorizes different genres into different sections so that no matter what kind of horror you're into, you will find it in here. And the other great thing is that she's included books just from, I think, the year 2000 onwards. Walk the Darkness Down, I heard about in 101 horror books to read before you're murdered. It is set in the Old West. It is a dry, dusty, desolate place, and everyone could do with some chapstick. There is a monster stalking the land. Once a man, but now one of the most terrifying and grotesque villains that I have ever encountered in a horror novel. With each successive person that he kills, he puts a piece of that person on his own body. And not to give too much away, by the end of the book, his arms are scaled in fingernails. He has extra ears, he's got extra parts, he's got a lot of extra skin. It is absolutely horrifying. John Bowden, you are a sick man, and I love it. So with Walk the Darkness Down, it is has more of a cosmic horror element. There are all kinds of things slimy and tentacled trying to break through into our world and coming to get you. The prose is so purple, it is like a fresh bruise. The writing style is very dense. It's very thick, very gristly. You'll be chewing on it for quite a while. There are sentences I kind of had to read over again and take a bit more slowly because there is so much imagery and language packed into each sentence. There's, just a lot of immense poetical beauty in the way John Bowden writes. It is more of a slim book than our next choice, which is Red Rabbit by Alex Grecian. Again, set in the Old West. Again, a dusty, dry and desolate place. In Red Rabbit, you've got witches and werewolves and ghosts and ghouls and danger at every turn. We have a motley misfit bunch that form a posse and drive around in an iconic red painted stagecoach. But let me assure you, this is a dark story. There is a lot of dark and violent elements to the story. Let me reiterate, I love it. There's excellent character work, which I think is maybe what Walk the Darkness Down was missing. The characters in Red Rabbit are so well-rounded. They are flawed and believable and very identifiable. While the prose is not as thick and sticky as Walk the Darkness Down, it is beautifully written, gorgeously written. So the tone of Red Rabbit is quite dark, but there is also a lot of warmth and character in the book. Now, if I may, let me explain why I think that Westerns and horror go so well together. It's a match made in hell. The Western genre is full of lawlessness, violence, death, deprivation, isolation. These are the perfect environments to add an element of horror. Look at one of my favorite Western stories, Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. You can't deny that even though this book is not categorized as horror, it is truly horrific. There are bodies on every page. Or even one of my other favorite Westerns, Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. While this isn't as bleak as Blood Meridian, there are still some parts that are also violent and horrific. When you add maybe supernatural elements to this kind of environment, it already works so well. The tension is already there. So with books like Walk the Darkness Down and Red Rabbit, where there might be these supernatural elements, it works so well because you're already in an environment that is hostile and deadly. Books set in the West are already full of ghosts, and that is why literary Western horror is my favorite genre. Fever dream folk horror is my favorite genre. Lost in the Garden by Adam S. Leslie. Usually when something is described as dreamlike, what is meant is that it is something ethereal, insubstantial, hazy, indistinct. This is not that kind of dream. This is the kind of dream you have when you've eaten too much cheese before bedtime. Like everything is incredibly vivid and sharp, and everything happens in bright blazing sunshine. This is the kind of dream that seems so incredibly real, but you can't get out of it. So this is described as folk horror, and it is definitely a folk horror story. There's no blood or gore or violence. It's not that kind of horror. It is more of a psychological horror. One of the things that I love most about folk horror is that it deals with birth and death, growth, decay, fecundity, and what is it that makes things grow? The sunshine. There is so much of folk horror that occurs in blazing sunshine. Think of movies like The Wicker Man or Midsummer. There are these bright, beautiful, vivid colors. Some of the most horrendous things happen in the blazing sunshine. So Lost in the Garden is set in a kind of bucolic, rural England in which summer never ends and there are zombies everywhere. But they're not zombies. The author is very careful to let us know that these are not zombies, they are ghosts. They are just corporeal ghosts, and they will kill you, which is basically a zombie. But let's move on. The one rule that everyone is taught from childhood is that you never go to Almonby. We don't know why, we just know you cannot go to Almonby. And so three friends set out to go to Almonby. You've got Heather, who is going to Almonby because she is trying to find her boyfriend who had gone to Almonby about 6 months previously and promptly disappeared. There's Rachel, who has a mysterious package to deliver to Almonby. And then you have Antonia, who is just along because they have a not-so-secret crush on Heather and are hoping that this might be their opportunity to finally make a move, or at least say one whole sentence to Heather. What we then have is a very strange road trip across the country. The strangeness keeps on growing the closer they get to Almonby. Strange things happen, they behave strangely, everything is very strange. What I think this book does do fairly well is kind of depict the repetition that you find in these like very vivid dreams. The kind of thing where you're walking through a house but you keep on entering the same room. You're just going around and around and around, entering and exiting the same room, and you can't get free. It's very difficult to write repetition in a book without completely losing the reader. And I think this book does do it quite well. The atmosphere that is built, I really liked. I find that this is a book that has stayed with me longer, for quite a long time. I think about it often. It has really stayed with me. It's kind of haunted me a little bit. Clean by Alia Tribuco Zeran and translated by Sophie Hughes is set in Chile and is the story of a maid, Estella, who has for years done everything for the family that she works for, including witnessing their secrets. Estella is recounting her story from behind a locked door. We don't yet know where she is or why she's locked up, but she says very, very early on in the story that the young child of this family has died. It's up to us to work out whether this is a confession or if there's something else going on here. This is a very tense, propulsive story about class and power and powerlessness. Estella endures a barrage of classist microaggressions from the family that she works for, until finally she, at one point in the book, withdraws into silence as a response to this role that leaves her invisible and powerless and voiceless. So she stops talking. Her vow of silence is only broken once this tragedy happens and she is telling her story through this locked door. This is a very powerful novel. It maybe takes a little bit of time to get going. The first half of the book, while it's setting things up, is maybe a little bit slower, but it is definitely worth hanging in there because this is such a powerful novel about class and who has power, and about agency and the treatment of domestic workers. A really wonderful, powerful book. The final book that I read in January is The Woman in Black by Susan Hill. This is the quintessential gothic haunted house novel. If you're looking for just a classic haunted house story, this is your go-to. It's this and Shirley Jackson. So it was published in the 1980s, but set about 100 years prior. And it is like most gothic horror stories that came before it, about a young man, an outsider who comes into a close-knit and very secretive community to sort out some business at a mysterious mansion. I do have to say that the house at the center of this story, Eel Marsh House, is probably one of my favorite haunted gothic houses in literature. It is surrounded on all sides by marshy, muddy wetlands. The house is only accessible twice a day when the tides run out. The rest of the time it is completely unreachable. My favorite part of the book is when our young hero at the center one night hears a pony and carriage driving into the mud and being sucked down into the mud as the horses scream and a child cries, and he's completely unable to see anything because of a rolling mist that has come through. I thought that was very well done. This is just your classic quintessential gothic haunted house novel. What more can I say? So that's it. That is everything I read in January. It was only once I started going through them for this video that I realized it's very horror heavy. A lot of horror. You got your haunted house horror. There's the Western horror. I had folk horror and gay horror. I guess I'm just going through a real horror phase at the moment. There's so much that can be done with the horror genre. I think people sell it short far too often. Thank you once again for joining me on this spectacularly unplanned journey. Interrupting poodle.